Submit. So good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining this second webinar within the CMT Awareness Campaign of European CMT Federation. My name is Filippo Genovese. I'm the Chief Scientific Officer of ECMTF and also President of the European Federation. For those of you who are not familiar with what the Federation does, the Federation was born a couple of years ago from a group of patient advocacy group members who decided that, who felt that they could work together and collaborate for a better future for CMT patients. So we are actually running a lot of activities, and one of those is the CMT awareness campaign. As you know, CMT is not a well-known disease. There's a lot of room to speak for it and improve awareness across Europe. So this webinar will be in a storytelling format. So I invited and thank you for accepting my invitation. 3 persons who somehow have to cope with CMT at different levels, and ask them to tell us how come they bumped into CMT. So the first speaker will be Larisa Shelukova. She's a special patient. She lives with CMT 1A, and she's doing a lot for CMT awareness and providing good pieces of advice because she's a neurobiologist. She's based in Japan, but you will not tell from her surname. So please, Larisa, tell us your story and how you bumped into CMT.
Yeah, Filippo, thank you so much for introducing me so kindly and inviting. I'm really honored to present today my story. Let me just share my screen. Okay. So I hope you can see my screen.
Yes, we do.
Now. Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, so today I'm just going to tell you all who is attending how I turned from a desperate patient with CMT into a resourceful patient with CMT. So my story is basically a typical CMT story. As you can see from this slide, my CMT progression is quite typical. I was quite an active kid, and up to the age of 14, 15, I did not really have any symptoms. And I was active, I was dancing a lot. But then I started having some weird symptoms, and I started going to different doctors, which couldn't really tell me what was wrong with me for 4 years. So my diagnostic odyssey was 4-year long, which is not even that long for people with CMT. And of course, me and my mom, we spent a lot of time and money on going to doctors, on trying different unproven treatments. And up to the age of 32, I was falling and spraining my ankles a lot. I was having this constant swollen ankles and injuries. And I've had 3 casts. So by the age of 32, as you can see, I've already had 3 casts. And I also started having issues with my hands. So for CMT, it's quite typical to first have symptoms that start with the gait and then transition to the hands as well. And now the question is how it will progress further. So if you look at, again, a typical progression for type 1A, for example, and this is the progression we usually see because it's the most studied type. By the age of 50, 60, I might need a walker or maybe even a wheelchair later on. So this is a typical CMT journey and progression. But now I want to talk a little bit more about what it actually means and the emotions I went through. So as I have already mentioned, I was quite an active kid and I was dancing a lot, and dancing school was basically my second home. I really loved dancing. It was one of my favorite pastime. Well, actually the favorite pastime. And I had a lot of friends there. And as you can see, up to the age of 14, I could actually do this. So I could lift my heels off the floor. I was jumping and doing all kinds of moves. I could do splits and everything. But then suddenly I started noticing that I cannot basically lift my heels off the floor anymore. It became being difficult for me. And so at the age of like 15, when I was supposed to graduate from the dancing school, we had like a graduation concert, but instead of being on the stage, which I thought I would do, I was in the audience and looking at my friends dancing instead of dancing myself. So at that time, it became obvious that something is wrong. And here you can see just a list of symptoms which manifested in my case and which are quite common for people with CMT to experience. I couldn't toe walk. It was uncomfortable to walk. And that was the one symptom I was actually mentioning to everybody, to my parents, to doctors. I didn't know how else to put it. I was like, yeah, it's uncomfortable to walk. And most people were just like, what? I don't understand what you mean. And of course, it was difficult to find shoes to feel comfortable. All the shoes suddenly started being very uncomfortable. And I was experiencing often trips and falls, ankle sprains, and you could tell from my gait that I walked funny. And I would often get questions from my friends, for example, like, why are you limping? And at that time, I really didn't know what to tell them. And up to the point of my diagnosis, I actually still didn't know what to tell. But now, from the point of an adult, and after discussing this a lot with my mom, actually these were the first obvious symptoms, but the first symptoms were even before that. So just like many people with CMT, I was a slow runner and a bad jumper, and I had bad PE grades, which was very upsetting to me because I always had good grades in all the other subjects. And I was clumsy. And then my mom even mentioned that at one of the dance classes, she noticed that I had like tremor when I was toe walking during the dance class. So yeah, retrospectively, it's quite kind of easy to think about which were the very first symptoms, and they were probably really connected with CMT. So then at that time, our diagnostic odyssey started. And for us, it meant going to different cities and spending, of course, time and money on traveling from one city to the other, because I come from a small city, Kostroma, it's called, in Russia. And here you can see a picture, one of the lovely pictures of the city. And we went to all kinds of doctors there. We didn't even go to the neurologist at first because we didn't know which doctor to go to. But finally, the neurologist told us, our city is really small and we don't really have specialists. They can really diagnose you, so you should go to a bigger city. So I went to a bigger city, which was kind of close to my home city, Yaroslav. But then again, there were tests, there were some MRI tests. Again, nothing was clear. The doctors were kind of still confused. And then finally, we came to Moscow, where it did become clear after a number of tests that, I do have CMT. So the doctor that was doing tests noticed that, I don't really have reflexes. My EMG results are consistent with, so my nerve conduction velocity test results are consistent with CMT, demyelinating type. And finally, my DNA test was done, and I got the results the day I turned 18. So my final diagnosis, CMT1A, was told to me just the day when I turned 18. And so this clarity was kind of a clarity moment, but not quite. It was also a very upsetting moment because the doctor wasn't very talkative. He didn't explain me much. He just said that, it's an incurable disease. There is no treatment. You will get worse, and pretty much prepare for a wheelchair. So that was a shock, of course, for me and for my family. And I was like, how come a few years ago I was dancing and I was doing well, but now suddenly I will be maybe in a wheelchair the next day. And so I was really depressed and anxious about what the future would be like for me. And I felt quite helpless. And I developed some sleep problems. But of course, my mom, she was trying really hard to make me feel better, and we were trying to find some solution at least. So we went through all kinds of doctors, and not only doctors, but frankly charlatans, and we tried all kinds of procedures ranging from massage, which is okay, but then going to homeopathy and acupuncture and all kinds of medicines as well. So this is also a very weird and interesting thing, that many doctors in Russia, when they diagnose people with CMT, they prescribe a lot of drugs. Like I was prescribed like 5 drugs, and I was taking them all. But then after a week of taking all these drugs, I realized that I'm not really feeling very well. I started having like a foggy kind of head. So me and my mom, we just decided that, okay, I'll just stop taking them altogether. And of course, my mom was trying to cheer me up, even though it was hard for her too. But I couldn't really see a reason to be cheerful or optimistic, well, because all the things I was told were really depressing, and I couldn't really be happy or optimistic just because maybe I'm not as bad as some other people. So this did not work for me. And so I decided, okay, I should just find more information, at least for now. And once I Googled it in Russian, I almost couldn't find any information. So of course, that was a long time ago. But there was a small article on Wikipedia in Russian about this disease, which basically repeated what the doctor said. And there were no other answers to either one of the questions that I had, like, is it okay for me to keep dancing, at least to the extent that I can, what kind of diet I should be following, what kind of drugs I should be taking, if I should at all, what kind of future kind of holds for me. So there was no reliable or relevant information in Russian, which again was contributed to my really kind of depressed state. But then with time, at that time, I was actually in my undergrad and I was learning languages. I was learning English and French. And finally, I learned enough of English so that I could Google information in English. And so I started Googling, and a whole new kind of picture unraveled. I realized that actually a lot of research is going on CMT. And patient groups do a great job in English of delivering this information to patients. So I could find answers to whether I should be exercising or not, and of course I should. And then if certain symptoms are connected to CMT or not, like fatigue, for example, that I was experiencing, and what kind of drug development is ongoing. So I started feeling really liberated, because I felt like, yeah, there is research going on. It's not like I'm alone. It's not like I'm the only person with this disease. And there are people who actually care and who develop drugs and study this disease. And the more I was reading and learning, the more I got interested in neurobiology and physiology and science, and I decided to pursue this path. So I enrolled into a master's program in Russia at first, during which I was studying the morphological changes of specific cell types, astrocytes, in rat models of Parkinson's disease. So astrocytes belong to this kind of group of cells, which are called glial cells. And this group also encompasses myelin, or Schwann cells, for example, the cells that produce myelin, and which are important in CMT. They play a big role in CMT, especially the myelinating types. So I got really interested in these cells, and then I decided to pursue a PhD as well. I moved to Japan, Okinawa. It's a subtropical island in the south of Japan. And I finished my PhD in Okinawa Institute of Science and Technology. Again, I was studying glia, but in a much more primitive organism. This one, as you can see here, it's a nematostella, it's called. It's a sea anemone. So, and then the question was, okay, so what should I be doing next? But actually, during my PhD, I already thought that I really want to make people with CMT less anxious and less depressed and more informed. And I really didn't want them to feel just like I did when I was first diagnosed, like shocked and lost and yeah, all these kind of negative emotions that were associated with everything unknown about this disease for me. And so I started an Instagram channel at first, and at first it was in Russian, because again, I thought in English there is already quite a lot of information, so I want to share information in Russian. And here you can see some of my subscribers, which kindly provided their photos to show them to you. And I'm really grateful to them because they found my channel useful, and they wrote to me very nice messages such as, yeah, your channel helped me more than doctors did, and I became really active and hopeful and optimistic about the future, because I see that this disease is really being studied and there are things that we can actually do ourselves. And then I decided to start a YouTube channel as well and switch to English, because this way I could reach more people. So now I release videos which are in English originally, but I also add Russian subtitles so that my Russian speaking followers can also get this information. And the videos I make range from if there is enough evidence for supplements taken, for example, in CMT, what drugs are being developed. For example, I covered the PXT3003 story. Of course, I just collected all the information that is available from public sources. And I talk about shoes, which is a big thing for CMT people, for people with CMT. And I try to make workout routines as well. And actually, these are based on the feedback that I got. I conducted 32 interviews with people with CMT, and I asked them what kind of activity they like, what kind of exercise they prefer, how much time they can spend on it, and so on. So I then kind of kept adjusting the routines that I'm releasing based on their feedback. And as you can see, I have quite a few followers, which I'm really happy about. And I hope that my channel can grow and I can reach more people with CMT, as well as caregivers and specialists who work on CMT. So speaking of specialists, I also reached out to some doctors in Russia at first, neurologists and a geneticist. We recorded a webinar with each of them. With the neurologist, we were talking about symptoms and diagnostics and everything. And then with the geneticist, we talked about family planning if you have CMT. And I also reached out to a rehabilitation specialist from the Netherlands, with whom we made a webinar covering gait management in CMT. And then I decided it would be great to collect all these specialists and like put them on the map and have like a database of all the specialists, different specialists that CMT, that people with CMT might need. I know that some countries already have some such databases, which is great, but it doesn't exist really in Russia or in Japan. And then people have to really struggle to find a specialist, especially near where they live. So I'm hoping that I can keep working on that and expand the network of CMT specialists beyond Russia, maybe also in Europe and Asia and everywhere. So if you want to be involved in this, please reach out to me, whether you are a patient with CMT or a specialist working on CMT. It would be great to also brainstorm and think about how it can be done better. So finally, I want to finish by saying that what made me optimistic is actually science and the realization that there is research going on CMT. Not thinking about how other people are suffering more than me or just being optimistic for the sake of optimistic, but actually the fact that there is research going on and being curious, being involved in what is going on in CMT research or community is really helpful, and to have a sense of control. So knowing that you can either participate in even clinical trials, you can help patient groups raise money, for example, for drug development, and you can also do things for yourself, such as exercise and eat well, sleep well, change your lifestyle for the better, and it helps. These things actually work. So we can do things that are working and that can make us optimistic. And then finally, I also realized that I can keep doing what I love. So I can actually keep dancing. So decided to try the pole because it was a dream for a long time for me to just be able to uh, dance using the fitness pole. And I thought I wouldn't be able to do it at all, but I tried, and I even got one and installed one at home. And of course, many moves are not available to me, but with practice, I managed to master some of them and do a little routine like that, and just keep doing what I really love. So I hope this can also inspire you to keep doing whatever you love, even though you do have CMT. Yeah, and I would urge everybody to follow my YouTube channel. And thank you so much for this opportunity to talk today. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Larissa. Your story is so inspiring. I know it somehow, but yeah, that's why I decided and I asked you to join our webinar and tell us. It, as you suggested, it kind of resembles the story of any CMT patient. I must say you were pretty lucky to have your diagnosis in just 5 years or so. Because you know the diagnostic wandering on average for CMT patient is 10 years. And yes, I agree, there is a lot of room for being optimistic because there's a lot of science and research going on. And as you know, we lost 2 webinars from the partners of the awareness campaign, Applied Therapeutics and NMD Pharma. By the way, thank you. They will both showcase the ongoing clinical trials on 2 different drugs. So yeah, thank you for sharing your story. I was wondering, as you may know, I'm a scientist myself, and I kind of, well, I'm not very confident in doing research on this in the CNT field, and I was wondering whether you had the same feeling on it.
Yeah, I took a lot of time thinking about whether I should or not, but somehow I decided not to. Yeah,
Mm.
I guess it's hard to verbalize why. I don't know if you can do it better, but yeah, I just decided that I can share my knowledge and my kind of understanding, but I don't really want to do research as such on the disease. Yeah.
Yeah, the same choice I did. I mean, I was worried that I might be too much committed into this, so I would not be at the same time objective. So that's why I
I
decided
see.
to, yeah. So right, and you're getting a lot of congratulations and comments in the chat. So thank you and anyone for joining this morning. And I will move to the next speaker, who is Aliteia. She's an artist, and I would say a dear friend of mine. I had the luck to interact with her a lot for her exhibition, and I actually attended 2 of them, and I must say that it's really emotional, and it's a great chance and a way of communicating awareness about Charcot-Marie-Tooth through art. So we are really happy to have collaborated with her in this project. And well, I don't want to spoil or anything, but we are working hard to have this show even abroad in different countries. So thank you for joining us, Alice. The stage is yours. Please tell us how you bumped into CMT.
So thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'm really, truly honored to be here this Sunday morning and to have the opportunity to share my perspective with all of you. Of course, I'm not a doctor. I'm I'm not on science. So I'm an artist, first of all. So what I would like to do this morning is to start telling you my story and what's everything has started, and then to explore the exhibition. So first the story, then the exhibition, and then the results that I have thanks to the exhibition. So everything started when I was 5 years old, and mainly I was a baby, a little girl. And every summer I went to the seaside with my family, and mostly with my mom and with my uncle. So, and every time that I went to the beach with their, I really fell in love of their feet, because mainly I wasn't able to see any feet like the feet of my mom and my uncle. So I really spent my time looking around the beach and to see if any other feet are like them. But really for me was a shape and line very different, and also in this different way of being also beautiful, because there were a lot of elegance in that line. And I even wrote on my book that perhaps at 5 years I understood what the shape of my sculpture would be, because really for me was something beautiful. After I believe that at 10 years, when I was 10, I asked to my mom and my uncle during the summertime as well. I remember it was lunch, and I asked to them, but why your feet are so different? My approach was a positive approach. I say, as I told you, I saw that kind of feet so beautiful, and the reason why were so beautiful because there were different feet. And really, I remember it was summertime, and in a moment there were silence, and a freezy situation, and no answer. I had no answer. After a few minutes, I went in another room. My mom reached me out, and tell me, you can't ask that kind of thing. So that was the answer that I received. And I believe that I realized the exhibition, the name of the exhibition is The Ballad of Human Mutation, to give an answer to that little girl. And the answer that I desire, it was, oh, that's my frailty. That's my vulnerability. And you, when you will grow, you will have to face your frailty, your face with your part that it makes you hard, it makes you different to be you in your life. So with this mandate, I decided that my first exhibition would be an exhibition that talk about CMT. So I'm gonna share my screen now, so you are able to see what I'm talking about. Yeah. So let's start with, this is my portfolio, and we are going to go through this portfolio because you are able to see all the exhibition I realize I realized in Italy, but we are still working on realizing in other countries around Europe. So this was, oh, so sorry. Now. Back. So everything started mainly here. I love that one. Everything started with a circle. And this is a video that you can see the face of the people that participate to that circle. So mainly, first of all, I guarded a circle in which I try to empower the people and to be able to not feel only the CMT. I am me with my characteristic and also the CMT, but I'm not only the CMT. So before to take the picture and to be in front of the camera, we work a lot to empower ourselves and don't to be a victim of the disease, but to be a messenger. I strongly believe that CMT, so my family, we have CMT from generation and generation. I do not have CMT. All my family has CMT, and we know very well the CMT. And we are really a lot of people with that kind of disease. And I can say that it depends of you. It depends of you how you decide to face this characteristic, because I believe that every people inside has a frailty or something that is different, and that should be something that makes you beautiful. But it depends of what part of the story you want to tell. And the Ballad of Human Mutation want to be, thanks to the CMT, a medium of awareness to change your own point of view. So I love to put the faces of the people, because the exhibition talk about feet and hands mainly, but this video show the courage and the happiness of the people that decide to show their hands and their feet, and something that perhaps they hide or cover for all the entire life. So it's really a message of courage that we want to give not only to the patient of the CMT, but all over the world. So this is, for example, you see there are some opera, some piece of art with the images of photo. Here you can see the installation, so mainly the installation. We have picture and sculpture. The sculpture, perhaps we are going to see better here. The sculpture is exactly the images of the feet of my mom when I was at the beach. So I realized that sculpture using the 3D print. So I scanned the feet of my mom and also my uncle. I do not have at the moment the opportunity to realize even the foot of my uncle, but I wish to have the opportunity to have both, to how can I say, to connect all the dots of my when I was little. So this is the sculpture is the feet of my mom, and the hands and the foot and the feet, the foot that you see on the background are of the people that participate at the first cycle. I realized even a second circle in Milan, and with only women, and it has been really a lot of emotion inside, because the topic, as I told you at the beginning, the topic of all the exhibition is to change the narrative, is to understand that CMT could be a mandate of courage. And I believe that even the story of Larissa is telling that. And you can see there another exhibition that I realized in Padua, so in a beautiful villa. And you can see here how much this something that perhaps you try to hide or to cover because it's different. I remember my uncle every time that she saw a shop of shoes, she went inside because she wanted to not show what she didn't like. And then I believe that really thanks for the exhibition, she changed in a way. And when I realized my first exhibition, my uncle sent to me the images of her foot, and she wrote me, "My foot is beautiful." So every time that I'm able to tell the story of CMT thanks to the exhibition. Every time I expose this story, every time I have message that people have changed their approach and are happier compares before, because really they perhaps find the courage, but also find the courage to be themselves. But also I believe that it's important to the sense of belonging. So they understand they are not alone, and perhaps they understand that they have a very, very important mandate in the contemporary society as well. That's the reason why for me CMT is a medium of awareness, because in contemporary society we have an aesthetic model that for me it's unreal. Every people has to be identical with no characteristic, no unique characteristic, but standard characteristic. So mainly the CMT for the exhibition of the CMT give me the possibility to tell another story, to tell is not the part that you are different, is the part that is beautiful, and you have to work a lot to show and not to cover, because it's you, it's your characteristic. And another point that you see there, fragility is my hero. Time to time, you saw even at the beginning, I'm not perfect, I'm a person. Time to time, I use that kind of slogan to push the message that I want to give to this generally society, because the society perhaps push to perfection, but perfection is unreal, and wouldn't be easier if we accept that every people is different. Wouldn't be easier if we stay closer, we are able to say stick to the nature, to the real nature that realize everything in a different way. And another argument that for me it's very, very important is fragility is my hero. You see there that at the moment we see the hero like a strong man or a strong woman that is able to do everything, very strong, if we close the eye, perhaps we see a perfect body. But this is not the truth. I believe that people that has characteristic like the characteristic we have the CMT, so the people that has to face the difficulty of walking, has to face the difficulty to do easy thing. Perhaps that are the people that we have to give to say that are the real hero, because you need more strength, more courage than the people that is able to do everything in an easy way. So really, again, a CMT, it's a media of awareness, of courage, to change, the courage to change, but even though to tell another story. And that was the story that I would heard from my uncle and my mom, but now I do it by myself. So you see another exhibition I realized in Riccione. I say I realize, but really the Italian association ECMTF helps me a lot and every day. And thanks to them, I was able to realize this kind of exhibition. So the exhibition in Riccione, when your body doesn't permit you to be yourself, I work with this graphic way of writing and with a lot of mistakes you see there. To push the message of imperfection. We have to be ourselves with all our imperfection. That's our true story. That's the true story of humanity. And this is beautiful, this exhibition you see there, because we work even with a school, so teenagers, And they gave us a lot of beautiful feedback that they realized their own exhibition with their imperfection. So here it's exactly the same question, where your body doesn't permit you to be yourself. And that was the beginning of the exhibition in Riccione. So in a dark room, and you were able to see the writing only if you, with a special light. And the exhibition that realized the teenager was an answer of that questions. We realize even performances, you know, the name the ballad has two reasons. The first of all is, of course, the funny game that even Verlisa told before, but even though
We lost her. Alice, we cannot hear you anymore. She might have some issue with a connection. Let's wait until she connects again. Yeah, as I mentioned before, I attended this exhibition twice in different locations or different setups, and the performance that Alitaia was talking about was a person. Actually, she was a real dancer who pretended to fall while all the person were visiting the show. So everyone was worried that she might have been hurt. Actually, she was, again, she was a professional dancer, so she was guilty falling down. So it was a way to deliver a message that our association is organizing a course to train general practitioners to know better CNT. Then another significant performance which was made in that edition of the exhibition was the CMT walk. So people were blindfolded, so guests, visitors were blindfolded and were asked to hold the hand or the arm of CMT patients. So while walking on our side, they felt our unsteadiness, our poor balance. So it was a really nice performance. Alicia is coming back. Alicia? Yeah, she's connecting. Can see her. She's online. So I was spoiling some of the next slides, Alicia, while you fix your connection issues. And yeah, in that case, the Riccione exhibition, we had, we had also students attending the exhibition. Actually, there were some, sorry, I'm trying to make Alitaia a presenter again. Let's see. Alicia?
I'm back, so sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just spoiling some of the, I spoke about the performance, so the CMT walk and the CMT fall. So you can just complete your presentation if you want.
Yeah, I believe that the performance that we realize in Riccione with the girl that suddenly fell down was very, very important, because it was a sit mob to engage the people too sad to give to them, their doctor, more information about the CMT. So it's very, very important, as Larisa is doing, and even the association is doing, to talk a lot, to talk more, to involve more people. So sorry for my connection. Okay, so here the performance and the one that we realized in Venice during the
Alicia, we are seeing Chrome. We can't see the PDF.
Oh, okay, try again.
Yep, that works.
Does it work?
Yep.
Perfect. So the performance that Filippo talked before, that the patient with the CMT is guiding you on walking, and you can see there, it has been for me really a very, very important moment, because in a way, people that were with me were free, and they decided if they want to use their shoes or not. And you can see here, for example, that women decide to have the courage to walk alone without the shoes in the red carpet of Venice. So really, around me, I see that there are a lot of people that want to change the narrative, and from something that you have to cover to something that you have to show, because you are able to tell another story, another part of the story. The last one exhibition we realized 1 month ago in Naples, and we were inside a very, very important museum where are collected all the books from Renaissance time. So very, very important exhibition. And that's all. That's my experience with CMT. And I do not have CMT, but I have a family with CMT. And the message, the result, in a way, the conclusion that I can share with you is that so I started to realize this exhibition, I believe, 1 year ago, and really every day, I believe that every day I receive a message for people that I don't know that has the CMT, and they tell me a different story. They tell me a different approach of their life. So that encouraged me a lot to push and to be able to reach more people that, thanks to art, are able to see that they are not alone, and they have a mandate that is able to change even the narrative of the contemporary society. So thanks a lot.
Yeah. Thank you, Alicia, for telling us your story. I know as a patient, as I said before, I attended the two of your exhibition, and as some people in the chat are commenting, I had mixed feeling at the beginning, because we tend, as you already stressed, we tend to hide our hands and feet because we're not very proud of it, so we are always somehow hiding. But at the end, in a very few minutes, that mixed feeling disappeared, and I felt like I was home, and it all made sense to me. And what I saw, what I felt, is that this message is very powerful, and gets really to people's heart, even if you don't know what CNT is. CNT might be a Trojan horse to deliver this powerful message, and to force and encourage people to be themselves, disregard of their physical aspects. So it's a very powerful message. I was wondering which is whether you had some special feedback, or there's a story you would like to tell. For instance, the post-it project you had with students in Riccione.
Yeah, I would like to share with you. So I have a book, so I believe more than 500 post-it. After I can show a picture of that, and so I really receive a lot of message, but Some of them I like. I have a black skin in a world of white. On another that I loved has been what happens if we remove the judge. So the teenager give me a lot of very, very clever message, and even thanks to the CMT, they start to think in another way, even their fragility, for example, the skin. But really, a message that I received 2 days ago, I would like to share even with you, Filippo, because I didn't share this with you. So I received a message from a women that participate at the that were in Milan. So I believe exactly 1 year ago, and I received their message, and she wrote me.
We'll never know. Okay. So meanwhile, Alice tries to fix his connection. We can move to our next speaker. It's my great pleasure to introduce you Dr. Kleopas Kleopa. He's from Cyprus. He's a researcher and a well-known researcher in the field of gene therapy of Charcot-Marie-Tooth research. And he and his group are doing an excellent work. I know that Alexia Cagliaro is also on the call. And yeah, they're doing great. I had a quick glimpse at his slides beforehand. And I must say that you forgot something in your CV, Dr. Kleopa. I mean, I had the luck to meet him a couple of times and shake his hand, and he's a very friendly and motivated scientist, so kind and committed to research and patients. So it's really great pleasure to have you this morning. So I will share the screen with your slides. I
Yes.
can't see him actually.
Yeah, good morning.
Can
you hear me well?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Yeah. Good morning to everybody. It's already been very inspiring, this webinar. I will try to give my perspective. I would like to thank Filippo and Ingo for the honoring invitation. It's always a pleasure to have the opportunity to talk with the patient community. Yes. I will give you a little bit my perspective as a clinician and researcher in the CMT field for the past at least 25 years now. So it has been a long journey. I'm not going to go into much detail about my path. Just as Philippe already mentioned, I'm working no, can we go back, please?
Yeah, sure.
At the Cyprus Institute of Neurology and Genetics in Nicosia. I've been around going to medical school in Germany. Then I went to train in neurology in the United States. I got very interested in neurology and then in neuromuscular disease and then in peripheral neuropathies and genetic diseases and Charcot-Marie-Tooth disease in particular. I have experienced all the development in CMT. When I was at medical school, we didn't know any genetic cause of the disease. I think that was one of the main reasons why I chose this field, because it was unexplored. At that time, we only told patients, you have a genetic problem most likely, but we don't know what the cause is. And definitely we wouldn't know how to start treating it. So it was a challenge that really I thought was worth pursuing. So right now I'm providing care for patients in the Neuromuscular Disorder Center, and I also lead a neuroscience research department, and we do a lot of research on CMT neuropathies, trying to develop treatments. So I'm also involved in several networks, in professional networks related to CMT, but also in patient associations, including the ECMTF, now the new structure, the European CMT Research Association, which I really hope will also promote research, and also the American CMT associations. If we go to the next slide, please. So, like I said, I'm very committed and very focused on CMT gene therapy for the last 25 years. Actually, my inspiration started from my mentor, Professor Stephen Scherer at the University of Pennsylvania. He's the scientist and neurologist who discovered the gene for the X-linked Charcot-Marie-Tooth disease, and of course, had a long research path and a lot of contributions. So he was a real example for me and an inspiration all of these years. And so I thought that there is a real unmet need in CMT neuropathies. These are relatively common, although there are many different types, and each type can be ultra rare, but altogether is one of the commonest inherited diseases that we have. And there is little research, there is no treatment, and there is little interest from companies until recently, no clinical trials. And so it was something that really needed investment in time and effort, and to make a difference, to change the field. And I must say that during my pathway in CMT research, I really got inspired by patients like you, like many other patients from around the world, that really embrace our effort. They give us moral support. They organize fundraising events. You see here one example that we had last year in Boston with the CMT4C community there. So they really have a passion, patients, and they lead the way. So that for us is a guiding force that keeps us working even harder. And then when we see the patients in the clinic, they tell us the same thing. We talk to the patients, we talk to the families. So it's really, this is the driving force behind everything we do. And thank you for this. In the next slide, you probably have seen this. I'm not going to go into too much technical detail, but CMT neuropathies are slowly progressive diseases. Patients deteriorate in terms of their symptoms, the difficulty walking, the weakness in the muscles, the deformities of the feet, the loss of sensation and balance slowly progresses over many years. It is not usually a life-threatening disease. Most patients will retain ambulation ability until old age, but not all. But it's still a huge burden with this disease. There is increasing disability. Patients tell us always that they feel that they keep losing something from their ability constantly, which is a really frightening experience and creates a lot of stress, and of course affects all aspects of life. So the disease is very heterogeneous. There are many, many different genes that cause the disease, over 100 by now, which also creates a challenge for how to treat each type of CMT neuropathy. In the next slide, I just take a step back to make it very simple to tell you that peripheral nerves are really all the cables that we have in the body that control muscles and sensation. So they are all over the body. Every part of our body is full of nerves. And these nerves are characterized by an axon, which is the transmitting unit, which is an extension of neurons. And these axons are usually covered by myelin, which is an insulating sheath that makes the speed of conduction much, much faster, 100 times faster. So based on this structure, we have the two types of CMT neuropathies, the demyelinating and the axonal. The demyelinating ones are caused by damage in the myelin first. The axonal ones are caused by damage in the axon first. And in the next slide, it gets more complicated, but I will break it down and make it very simple. This slide just tells you when we look into the cells and we look into the genes, then we can start understanding the cause of the disease. We can see that demyelinating CMT types are caused by damage in genes and proteins that are very important for these cells. For example, in the formation of the myelin sheath or in the maturation of Schwann cells. And axonal CMTs are caused by mutations in neurons, because neurons are the ones that send the axons and transmit all the messages. So this is very important. And I'm showing this slide to show how complicated the biology of CMT neuropathies is, but also how important it is to fully understand it in order to begin to talk about any treatments. Because if we don't address the cause and the mechanism of the disease, we cannot develop any effective treatment. And so this is very important to have in mind. In the next slide, I will go very quickly just to say that genes are really the basic units of heredity. So they determine what kind of proteins are going to be synthesized in the cell. And you start from the DNA. DNA is transcribed to the messenger RNA, and messenger RNA is translated to protein. So it's very simple. And so anywhere along this pathway, we can have a problem from genetic mutations. And there are different ways to fix faulty genes by the way of gene therapy. So gene therapy is the use of genetic material to treat or to prevent disease. We can either replace a faulty gene, or we can silence a toxic gene if it's overproduced or if it's causing damage to the cell. And now there is also a fancy new approach to gene editing, which is like cut and paste, that has to be, of course, very precise. In the next slide, just shows how the gene replacement works. So we package the healthy gene in a vehicle, which is called viral vector. We deliver it to the organism, and then this vector will release the genetic material in the cell, and that DNA will start producing the normal protein to correct the damage of the cell. So this is basically, in a few words, the whole principle of gene therapy. In the next slide, this is just to highlight that in terms of genetic therapies, we really have to target the specific cause. As I already mentioned before, the demyelinating CMTs are caused by damage of genes in Schwann cells. And so we have to deliver the genetic therapies to the Schwann cells. And in the axonal forms, the damage results in neurons and the axons. So we have to deliver the genes into the neurons to fix the problem. And so this determines really the approach and the strategy for designing CMT treatments. In the next slide, now I'm just going to give you a couple of examples of what's going on today in terms of treatments. And thank God we're not back in the 90s when we didn't even know the genetic cause. Now we know the genetic cause for the huge majority of CMT neuropathies. So currently, at least 90% of patients can be diagnosed, and we can find exactly what the causative gene is. Still, the most common type of CMT is CMT1A. So this is the disease that Larissa talked about at the beginning. This is about 50% of all cases, and this is caused by an overproduction of a protein in Schwann cells. It's a PMP22 duplication and a gene dosage effect, which means that patients have, instead of having the 100% of normal protein amount, they have 150%. And this excessive amount causes damage in the Schwann cells, destruction of the myelin, and then gradually leads to the manifestations of the disease that you all know. So the current therapies we have in front of us for this disease aim to reduce the amount of PMP22 in the nerves. And there are many ways to do that. So we have many different therapies currently in development. If you look to the left of the picture, you can see some non-viral methods. So these are nanoparticles or fatty acid conjugated nucleic acids that are targeting the PMP22 messenger RNA. So that will reduce the production of the protein. So these are already past all the preclinical testing from cells to mice to non-human primates, and one of them is now ready to enter a clinical trial. So we hope that the Falcon technology approach will enter clinical trial next year. So this is a really exciting time. On the right, you see viral vectors. So viral vectors again deliver small RNA molecules to reduce the expression of PMP22. This is a technology we're developing in my laboratory, and now it's been further developed by industry as well. It's also very close to clinical translation. It's past the FDA initial evaluation. And so with all these approaches, the aim is to reduce the PMP22 level back to about 100% and to get the dosage right. So this is something that hopefully will create hope and will have beneficial effects for CMT patients. And we really look forward to this. In the next slide, I give you an overview of current treatment approaches for the second most common type of CMT, the X-linked CMT type. This is the one that myself and my team has been working on the longest time. And so we try, here we have a gene that is not functioning properly in myelinating Schwann cells, leading to the destruction of the nerves over time. So here we try to use gene replacement. We try to deliver the healthy gene into the Schwann cells, and we use a viral vector to deliver the gene. This is also quite advanced. We reached a stage of large animal testing. It's supported by industry, and we hope that it will also move towards clinical translation in the next couple of years. There are also other approaches, including neurotrophic factor-based approach and some other drug-based therapies that target other mechanisms like inflammation and energy supply pathways. So there are many ways, and some of these approaches may work in a complementary way, maybe combined in the future. In the next slide, I have an example of a very rare CMT type, which is also very close to my heart, and we've been working on this. This is our autosomal recessive CMT4C. Here we also develop a gene replacement strategy. This is a loss of function of the gene. The gene is no longer doing its job in Schwann cells, so we try to replace it. This is also advanced in the development in the model of the disease. We demonstrate effectiveness. It has been presented to FDA, and now it's also going through the final stages of toxicology, and hopefully will also enter a clinical testing in the next year or two. So that's another exciting development, and that will be an example for other rare CMT types as well. In the next slide, so I just wanted to highlight that, of course, it's a long pathway to get the medications and the treatments to patients. I already showed you the picture with a lot of molecules and proteins, so there is a lot of basic science on the bench to understand the disease cause, to find the genes, to test treatments first in the dish. Then we have to move to animals that have a neuropathy. There are models of the neuropathy. Then we have to demonstrate safety and efficacy in larger animals. And then we start the long path of clinical trials. And for very rare diseases, this may be different from what is done for other more common diseases. So it's a different clinical trial design. And currently, the only treatment for CMTs that went to clinical trials was the PXT that didn't work for reasons that we can discuss, but I'm not going to go into detail. And the gene therapies are lagging behind, but one of them is also in clinical trial right now for CMT2S. And of course, we need the regulatory feedback and regulatory approvals along this pathway. In the next slide, again shows where some of the CMT neuropathies are today in the pathway of treatment development. The CMT2S has reached clinical testing. CMT1A is just about to enter clinical trial for gene silencing therapy, and several others are already advanced in the disease model. So hopefully, in the next couple of years, we will have several clinical trials for CMT treatments. In the next slide, I just wanted to highlight an important aspect of CMT research and way to facilitate the therapies getting to the patients is the fact that we need to have clinical trial readiness. What does that mean? It means that we need to understand how the disease develops, the severity of the disease, how the disease changes over time in a given group of patients. And we need to have sensitive ways to measure the disease progression over a relatively short period of time of 1 to 2 years, because this is the only feasible way for industry to develop treatments. Otherwise, clinical trials cannot go on for 5 years, for example. So there is a lot of research going into this direction, not only for clinical tools, so to measure patients' gait and muscle strength and balance and all this, but also to develop biomarkers. For example, the magnetic resonance imaging that measures the fat replacement of the muscle in the limbs, or blood tests to show molecules that are elevated if the nerves are damaged. So these we call plasma biomarkers, and even skin biopsy that shows loss of the skin nerves. So all of this is a very active field of research that also requires a lot of patient involvement to make it possible that if we have promising treatments, they will have a fair chance to be successful in clinical trials in the near future. And this story here is part of the reason why the PXT trial failed. It's because there wasn't much progression in the patients, and we didn't have a good way to measure the progression. And that's why the effect was not demonstrated. In the next slide, I just want to give you like an overview of how I envision, the global networking to facilitate progress in CMTs and just put every piece of the puzzle and every stakeholder on the map. Obviously, we are in Europe, but we need the entire globe for some of the CMT neuropathies that are extremely rare. We need to collect all patients. We need, first of all, we need the patients. We need you, we need the patient associations. They're leading, all the network building, all the lobbying, all the support for research information to patients, recruitment of patients to be involved. We need the clinicians because they examine the patients, they make the diagnosis, they measure the disability, and they prepare the patients for treatment trials. We need the basic researchers that have to help with understanding the disease and choose the right drugs. We need the industry because without industry investment, it's very difficult to bring treatments to the clinic. So we really need industry involvement, and it's not easy. It's not a very profitable or a very big market. And we need the regulatory authorities because they need to tell us what they want to see to approve a medication and what safety and what studies that we need to present for the medication to be approved. So their feedback is important all along. And I think the next slide essentially just describes this way, just to highlight that we have exciting new treatments in the horizon. We really need to work all together. We have to put all the stakeholders in the game and collaborate and make it possible in the near future to bring treatments for patients. And with this, I think I'm closing. In the last slide, just wanted to thank you for being with us today. I would like to thank my team. And of course, none of this work is one-man show. It always takes an army of researchers, many people over many years, many collaborators from different countries, from different fields. So and of course funding, which mainly comes from the patient association. So again, without the patients, without their leadership, really nothing much can happen towards progress. So thank you, Filippo and Ingolf, and I'm happy to discuss or take any questions.
Yeah, thank you, Kleppers, for this inspiring and clear presentation. There's a comment from Ingolf, who, by the way, is the Vice President of the European CMT Federation, and is the interim President of the European CMT Research Association. Ingolf. We can't hear you. No way.
We can't hear you, Ingolf. You don't seem to be muted, so maybe it's something with your microphone.
Yeah, it must be something with the setting of your microphone, because whatever. Okay, it's doing some bad gestures. I think it's time to. So yeah, in the meantime, I was actually presenting, so I don't see whether there is any specific comment. I would say no from the chat. So if you have any question, to type it down. And there are many considerations to be done. For instance, the networking, as you stated, is definitely important. And us as a federation, we do have 12 full members and some associate members ranging from China, Israel, and the States as well. So, and we are also working to contact other patient advocacy groups from all over the country and push the collaboration between us as patient advocacy group. And of course, the European CMT Research Association may be kind of a fulcrum to all of this, to have all of you scientists interact for a better future for CMT patients.
Filippo, sorry, there is a question.
Oh, there is.
Now.
Yeah, just arrived.
Yes, from Tulia.
Yeah.
The question is, will treatment be able to turn the CMT back, or will it stop the further development? This is, of course, a very important question. So what can I say about this? CMT damages the nerves over many, many years and causes the muscle weakness. And of course, some of the muscles are very weak. You know, some patients have a complete drop of the foot already for many years. Other muscles are weak but are not so much damaged. So in essence, the answer is if the disease is very advanced or parts of the body are very severely affected, we don't expect to improve them. We don't expect to bring those nerves back because they are very damaged. Even if we fix the cause of the disease, it would probably be very difficult. But we can improve other muscles and other nerves that are still struggling but are not severely damaged. So we can make other muscles stronger, for example, the thigh muscles, the trunk muscles that are very important for balance, for gait, the arm muscles. So the answer is we definitely we hope that we will stop the further progression, which is already very important for patients. But we hope that for some patients that are not so severely affected or for some parts of the body that is not so weak, we can also bring about some improvement because nerves that are stressed but are still trying to do the work, we can help them to recover if they're not completely damaged. So it depends on the patient's stage and on the degree of weakness in each body part. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, there is Larissa with her hands raised.
Yes.
Would you like to make a question or comment? Larissa, you are welcome to speak.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Cleopa. It was a very interesting presentation. I might have missed that, but you mentioned that some endpoints that were used in clinical trials, like for PXT3003, for example, were not sensitive enough. So now you're looking into developing like biomarkers that could be sensitive. So does it mean that the clinical trials that are about to start, maybe next year for CMT1A gene therapy and the others, will be different, or will they still be okay? Can you maybe talk a bit more about that?
Yeah, definitely. You know, the PXT trial started more than 5 years ago. And before that, we had another failed trial on the ascorbic acid. So there are a lot of lessons learned over the last years. So that's why people put a lot of effort to develop these sensitive measures. So in the new trial, any new trial from now on will definitely incorporate these biomarkers, for sure the MRI, for sure the blood biomarkers, and also the new clinical examination outcome measures. So I hope that the new trials will have a better chance because we learned a lot from the drawbacks of the previous. Yes, definitely.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you, Larissa. So we got the question from Ingo von Chart is stating that the CMT prevalence is 1 out of 2,500. It's 3 million patients worldwide, an average of 10 actually years diagnostic wandering. So he met a patient yesterday who had to wait 40 years before getting his diagnosis. So how can we inform people and physicians to find a better way to find patients who don't know which their problem is?
So I think there is a lot of work. It's difficult because it's still a rare disease. It may not be very disabling at early stages. Patients may go unnoticed, or doctors don't pay much attention to relatively mild manifestations at the beginning of the disease. So unless there is a family history, it's very difficult, especially for sporadic patients. And if they don't have access to an expert who immediately will know and immediately will look for it, it's very difficult. I think we have a lot of work to do to educate the doctors, to educate the medical students, to educate general practitioners, because they may see the patient first. Orthopedics may see the patients first. We have a lot of patients who had surgeries in the feet, many years with orthopedics and never went to neurologists. So there's still a lot of work to do, but I think with the social media, with reaching out to patients directly. People like Larissa, they do a great job. Some countries have easier access to specialists. I mean, you know, in Cyprus, a patient only needs to travel for an hour to come to me. In Russia, maybe they need to travel for many, many hours to go to an expert center. So it depends on the availability of the expert centers, but so that's why uh, us experts maybe have more responsibility to educate the non-experts and the community in general.
Yeah, maybe even next generation sequencing diagnosis platform might lend a hand in reducing this diagnostic wandering time leap.
Yeah, although that sometimes delivers results that are very difficult to understand and still need the expert to make sense.
Definitely, definitely, absolutely. So there's a question from Mary Buckley. How many people will take part in the clinical trials, and at what stage of the disease they will be? So,
So
which
it
is
would,
the go on.
yes, it's a discussion we've been having for the last few years now, and we discussed also with regulatory authorities. So in general, we start with phase one. So first in human trials involve a smaller number of patients because first you want to see safety. You wait for a while and then you start recruiting more patients. It will be approximate for CMT1A. It's estimated that at about 100 patients at least will be needed in a clinical trial phase 3 to show therapeutic effect with all the biomarkers. For some of the more rare types like CMT4C, we may not have 100 patients. We have to design a smaller trial and go stepwise. So there are different ways to design a trial depending on the frequency of the disease and the severity. How fast does it get worse? In general, it's more preferable to have patients who are not too severe in the trials because those patients we know now from research that you don't see much of a change for a few years, whereas milder patients with milder disease tend to get worse faster, unfortunately. So these patients with relatively mild or moderate degree of disability may be the most suitable patients to go in the clinical trials first.
Okay, thank you, Clopas. So the last two questions. Catherine is asking, once the gene therapy for a specific gene is approved, how much it would be likely that that kind of approach might be used for instance, type 2 CNTs?
There are gene therapy for type 2 CMTs is easier than for the demyelinating CMTs because, like I said, we target the neurons and we have a very established way to target neurons for gene therapy. There is already a treatment in the clinic for spinal muscular atrophy. So targeting neurons is easier than targeting Schwann cells because they're all, they're all in the spinal cord. So I wouldn't worry about that as long as we have a DNA approach to fix the problem. And I think maybe
Yeah, the
one
last
final
one is,
question,
yeah,
why
you will agree.
CMT1A is so different? This is a very well-known issue within families and between patients, probably because there are a lot of other genes that modify the severity. You know, we are not made just of one gene, we're made of millions of genes. So maybe the other family member has some genes that are protective or make the problem worse. And some reasons we don't understand. Not everybody has the same PMP22 levels. So it may be an issue with disease modifying genes and different ways the body handles the toxic effect of the gene.
Yeah, there is a study ongoing from the
Yes.
University of Miami. They are investigating this, comparing extreme phenotypes, so mildly affected people and heavily affected people to find out which are those gene modifiers. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining this morning's session. So thank you, Larissa. Thank you, Alice. Thank you, Cleopas. And thank all of you. And have a lovely rest of the day. And keep following us. We will have 3 more webinars with dealing with clinical trials and CMT research. Have a nice Sunday and take care.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Goodbye. Thank you.
Now we can hear you.
Can you? What
Yeah.
happened?
I don't know.
Incredible. Too late.
So, take
Thank
care.
you. Yeah.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.